Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So yesterday we began with the fifth chapter, where after hearing the fourth chapter, Arjuna puts the question, you say that Yoga Sannyasa Karmanam Jnana Sanchina Samshaya, that being situated in yoga, sannyasa means, give up the fruits of the work. But sannyasa means give up work, Arjuna is thinking. And being situated in knowledge, Atmavantam, Nibadnati, you will not be bound. And then the next instruction is Tasmata Atishta Uttishta Bharata. Tasmat Ajnana Sambhutam Ristam Jnana Asina Atishta Uttishta sorry. I'm not able to recollect that verse. Let me go through the verse. Tasmat Ajnana Sambhutam Ristam Jnana Sinatmana Chitvainam Samshayam Yogam Atishta Uttishta Bharata. Chitvainam Samshayam Yogam. Yogam means be situated in Nishkam Karma Yoga. So Arjuna is confused. So that's why, first you tell me, renunciation of work, but then you speak about Nishkam Karma Yoga. You speak about sannyasa and yoga. So now Krishna, he's asking the same question, but Krishna gives a deeper answer. So we saw that yesterday there is work in renunciation and renunciation of work. Although karma yoga and jnana yoga are at different higher levels, because it requires adhikar, and they are not two different paths, they are one above the other. But now Krishna equates them and he says karma yoga vishishyate, because the reason we mentioned from action to inaction is difficult, and from inaction to action, which is in the path of bhakti, is also very difficult because of the atrophy effect. And then Krishna says karma yoga vishishyate, and then he's a nitya sannyasi, and he doesn't hate his work nor he desires the fruits. He is transcended the dualities and easily he attains liberation. So there is a karma sannyasi and the nitya sannyasi. Arjuna is recommended to become a nitya sannyasi. And then only those who are bala, they distinguish between sankhya and yoga. They can attain the results of both, because both lead to liberation. But here he mentions, that it is dukkam, whereas achirena adhigacchati Brahman. And then Brahman yoga yukta vishuddhatma, kurvan api na lipate, he is not bound, because he is vishuddhatma, vijitatma, jitendriya, like that. And then how one is situated in the self, and although the interaction of the senses and sense objects is happening, he is not bound. And all his actions are done for Brahmanyadaya Karmani, and without attachment, Sangam Tektva. And that's why he is not lipate in the reactions, you know, just like a lotus, Padma Patram Ivambasi. And he does this with Kayena Manasa Indriya. And then he distinguishes contrast between the Nishkam Karmi Yogi and the Sakama Karmi. And then we spoke about these three doers, how he is situated within this Dehi, in the Navadvara Pure Dehi, na kurvan na karan. He doesn't perform it because for Manasa, he is sannyasta, sukham, happy, residing in the nine gates. And then there is who is the doer we saw, you know. We saw this verse also, you know, that everything is happening by the Lord is also not the karma phala sanyogam, because everything is prakriti. But the Lord also doesn't take the papa or punya. It is only because of ajnana. The jiva is bewildered. So we saw these three doers yesterday. I'm not going to go into it again. And then when the ajnana is destroyed by jnana, and then everything is revealed. So this is where we stopped our discussion. So today we will continue. Now this is the last section, 17 to 29. By fixing the mind on Paramatma, Karma Yogi attains liberation. And in that last two sections is 27 and 28. Ashtanga Yoga is elaborated in chapter 6. A glimpse of that process is given in 27 and 28. In 29, Bhakti Yoga, which is elaborated in chapters 7 to 12. In fact, Vishwanath Thakur says that even Ashtanga Yoga is mentioned in chapter 29 only, verse 29, he says. We will see how it is, he's saying. But Bhakti Yoga glimpse is also given, which will come in chapter 7 to 12. So now, we mentioned that by Atmagyan, one will remain free from bondage. But in order to attain liberation, one has to meditate on the Paramatma. That can be the process of jnana, in which there is contemplation, or Ashtanga, in which there is meditation. So now let us see this section. Liberation, fixing the mind on the super soul. Tadbuddhastadaatmanastannishta tatparayana gachanti apunaravrtam jnana nirdhuta kalmasha. Those whose intellect mind, tadbuddhas tadatmanas, and faith are fixed in me. Tannishta, matparayana, tat parayana is there, or tat parayana. Tat is, he is referring to the third person here, not mat, sorry, you know, who are absorbed in glorifying and serving me. So Vishwanath Chakra Thakur makes a very interesting observation that even the Gyanis, they have to actually, the Tat refers to the Supreme Lord, who is mentioned as Vibhu in the 15th verse. And those who place their intelligence on the Supreme Lord, those Tat Buddha, those who meditate using the mind, Tad Atmana, those who meditate, those who fix their knowledge on the Lord, giving up, the sattvic knowledge of the soul apart from the body, and become fixed only in the Lord. That is Tannishta. Since the Lord says that one should surrender to that knowledge to me, Mat Parayana means even in the process of Gyan, ultimately he has to give up the limbs of Gyan when he wants to attain liberation, because ultimately the bhakti element which is there in the Gyan, by that he will attain liberation. So this is, Bhakti Mishra Gyan which is being spoken. And then Tat Parayana, they become absorbed only in performing the limbs of bhakti. Gachanti, then they will attain. They will never take birth again. Apunaravrtam. They attain liberation. Why? Because Jnana Nirdhuta Kalmasha. Jnana Nirdhuta Kalmasha. So that's the point, Vishwanath Chakra Thakur makes. Of course, we have gone elaborately into it. I'll not, go through again in detail. And then, what is the vision of such a person? Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, Brahmane Gavihastini, Suni Chaiva Swapakecha, Pandita Samadarshina. The wise man sees equally Pandita Samadarshina, the Brahmana endowed with knowledge and good conduct. Vidya Vinay Sampanne Brahmane. Oh, somehow the translation is a little different here. 1 minute, let me check Vishwanath Chakra Thakur's translation. Uh, what is being translated in the Bhagavad Gita, I would like to see by Vishwanath Chakra Thakur. Give me a minute, please. I just stop because I just want to see the translation. What I have found is it's a little different. That's why. Fifth chapter. As I'm holding the hard copy here, it is a little different, and what we have in the slide is a little different. So I just want to verify it. Oh, yes. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. So, okay. The translation is a little different here. So, anyway, we'll refer to this right now because The wise man sees equally. Sama, you know, Pandita sees mean Darshana. The Brahmana endowed with knowledge and good conduct. Vidya Vinay Sampanne. The cow, the elephant, Gavi Hastini, the dog and the dog eater. Sunicheva Sapakecha. So, the translation in Banu Maharaj new printing is that the wise man sees only one Brahman. Sama means one Brahman. In the Brahmana endowed with knowledge and good conduct, in the cow, in the elephant, in the dog, and in the dog eater. So I'll later on change that. Mhm. So basically, this refers to the Brahmana and the Gavi um, equal vision towards the full spectrum of everything in the three modes. The the cow and the Brahmana in the mode of goodness. The elephant is in the mode of passion, and in the Sunicheva and Sopake. Suniche means one is a dog eater, and Swapaka. Shuni is the dog, and Swapaka is the pak means to eat, the dog eater. So he sees with equal vision, but it is not equal to equal reciprocation. That's difference between the two. Basically, he has the vision, the soul's vision is awakened, and he is able to see them beyond the external res, beyond the modes. Because whatever we see, our vision is always covered by the modes. So the consciousness is covered by the modes which under which we are influenced. And because this person is self-realized, the modes covering are not there. So and his soul's vision is awakened. So he is able to see everyone as a spirit soul, despite the external covering. And he doesn't see the external covering. And this also verse speaks about the latent vision of even the Paramatma, because the Paramatma is there in the heart of everyone. You know, those who are beyond the gunas have no attraction of seeing any object made of the gunas in terms of better and worse. So they are beyond the gunas. They have transcended the gunas. So they have no attraction to see things made of gunas. That this is good, this is bad. Because they have samadarshina. They have equal vision. They do not see those in the mode of goodness, the brahmanas and the cows, as I mentioned, and those in the mode of passion, the elephant, those in the mode of ignorance, the dogs, and as superior or inferior. Because they are not distinguishing living beings in the manner they are called Pandita Samadarshina. They are learned who have equal vision. They see everything. Sama means Brahman beyond the gunas. Hmm? Devoid of the distinguishing particular characteristics of the gunas. So that is Brahman refers to the Supreme Lord also, because we read in 5.10 Brahmanadaya Karmani. So there it referred to the Supreme Lord. Samadarshana means the learned who are ability to see Brahman who is beyond the modes. So they are able to see the absolute truth, God. And they see every living being as God's particle. That's the point. They see every living being as God's particle. That's the point. Now, further. एव जित् एव तैर्जिते सर्ग येषां साम्ये स्थितं मन निर्दोषं हि समं ब्रह्म तस्मात् ब्रह्मणि ते स्थिता. Those whose minds are situated in equality with the vision of Paramatma in all beings. So I mentioned that the vision of Paramatma is also latent in the previous verse. Esham samya sthitam mana. They see in their minds equality, conquer over the world of birth and death. Iha eva there jita sargo. Sarga means the material world where we enter in the cycle of birth and death. They are without fault. Nirdosham hi. Seeing equally everything as Brahman. Samam Brahman. Therefore, they are situated in Brahman. Tasmat Brahmani te sita. So, this verse praises the ability to see the Lord everywhere. Even in this world, Iha, Sarga, they have defeated samsar, because that which has been created, the sarga jita, they have conquered samsar, they have defeated samsar. And because they are like Brahman, samam Brahman, Why? Because they are Brahmani Sita. They are situated on the transcendental platform. That's why they are they are they are beyond the three modes. That's why they have conquered material existence. So that this verse is actually glorifying, praising the one who is able to see the Lord. Now the characteristics. न प्रशेत प्रियम प्राप्य नोद्विजेत प्राप्य प्रियम स्थिर बुद्धिरसम्मूढ़ ब्रह्मविद ब्रह्मणि स्थित. He whose intelligence is fixed, sthira buddhi, who is free from the bewilderment, asammudha. Asammudha means he is free from bewilderment. Who has knowledge of Brahman, Brahmavid. Vid means to know, and he has knowledge of Brahman, and who is situated in Brahman, Brahmani sthita. Brahmani, he is situated in Brahman. Brahmani, it is mentioned. In Brahman, you know, does not rejoice on attaining what is dear. Na prahashet priyam prapya, and does not become agitated on attaining what is not favorable. Na udvijet prapya cha apriyam. So, such a person is equal in the face of objects that are dear and not dear. Attaining dear objects, he is not rejoicing. Prahashet. Prahashet means to rejoice. Priyam prapya, which is dear. And, he is attaining unwelcome objects. No dvijet. He does not become disturbed. Prapyan. Apriyam. Why? Because he is sthira buddhi and is asammuda. And he knows Brahmavid, and that's why he is Brahmani Sita. So that's why he is not bewildered. So, although this is speaking about a Siddha, but it is expected that even in the sadhana stage, a person should practice this mood. He should practice this mood. Text 21. Bhaya sparshesha saktatma vindatyatmani yat sukam sabrahma yoga yuktatma sukam akshayam ashnute. He who has attained the happiness of Paramatma within the soul. Vindati atmani yat sukam. So vindati means pleasure. Vinod, happiness of the soul, happiness of Paramatma within the soul. Please remove Yat Sukham, and is not attached to the happiness from sense objects. Bhaya Sparsha Asaktatma. Bhaya Sparsh means the senses come in contact with sense objects. Yahi samsparsha ja bhoga. So he's Asaktatma. Being totally absorbed in Paramatma, Brahma Yoga Yuktatma. He's Brahma Yoga Yuktatma. And because he's Brahma Yoga Yuktatma, Sukham, he's taking pleasure within, and this is Akshayam Ashnute. He attains permanent happiness. Sukham Akshayam Ashnute. So Vishwanath Chandra Thakur mentions that he is not attached, Asaktatma, to the happiness of sense objects. And he experiences in the soul happiness for having attained Paramatma. Vindati Atmani Yat Sukham. And having enjoyed the happiness, he attains happiness which is permanent, Akshayam. Since it in constantly relishing that sweetness, he does not relish lower things. He samsparsha ja bhoga. Next verse it will come dukkha yonate. Or in 2.59, Vishaya vanivartante nihar param drishtva nivartate, like that. He doesn't take pleasure in lower things. So the progression in 521 is detached from external stimuli, seeking happiness within in the Paramatma. He concentrates on the Supreme, Brahma Yoga Yuktata, and relishes imperishable happiness. Sukham Akshayam Ashnute. Now the opposite, is mentioned. And he being a Buddha, he doesn't take pleasure. Yahi samsparshaja bhoga dukkhayonev evate adyantavanta kaunteha nateshu ramate Buddha. The enjoyments arising from sense objects, yehi samsparshaja bhoga, are causes of suffering. Dukkha yona evate, and having a beginning and end. Adi antavanta. An intelligent person, Buddha, does not enjoy them. Na teshu ramate. So samsparsha ja, the contact of the senses with sense objects, with the desire to enjoy bhoga, that impregnates or puts the seed of dukkha yoni, you know. And this contact of the senses and sense objects, it has a beginning, it has an end. And being a Buddha, na teshu ramate. So the intelligent person, Buddha, does not attach himself to material pleasures. So dukkha yoni means material enjoyment is pregnant with misery. And it is adi. And it is antavanta. Vishaya is trishna and shok, ultimately. So the mind torments everyone. The materialist, so many desires to fulfill, endless. For spiritualist, so many desires to reject. You know, ultimately he has to end material existence. Shaknoti शक्नोति एव यः शोढुं प्राक्शरीर विमोक्षणात् कामक्रोध उद्भवं वेगं स युक्तः स सुखी नर. He who yah can tolerate shodum saknoti in this world, eva, the agitation, vega, arising from lust and anger, kama krodha udbhavam, before being liberated from the body, prak sharir vimokshanat, is a yogi, sah yukta, and is happy, sa sukhi nara. So, although this Nishkam Karma Yogi, now being situated in Gyan and meditating on the Paramatma, he has crossed this samsara, eva jitesh harge, as it is mentioned. And he understands, although he is fallen in the ocean of samsara, but now he is transcendental because he is yukta and is happy. Because kama koda udbhavam vegam, he has controlled these vegas and he is able to tolerate shaknoti shodam, these agitations of kama and krodha. And he, as long as he is liberated and he tolerates these urges, his liberation is guaranteed. So that's a point, very important point Krishna is making. Vishnu Chakra Thakur purport is very brief in this. Sa yukta, sa sukhi nara. So how he is yukta and sukha, sukhi, next verse explains. So there are two fruits of tolerance connected to Krishna, happiness at the material level in the goodness. So these are two fruits. How is sa yukta, sa sukhi? Yo anta sukho antarama tatantar jyotireva ya sa yogi brahma nirvanam brahma bhuta digacchati. His whose happiness is within. Yo anta sukha. So why is happy? Because he is not taking pleasures in the outside senses. He's taking pleasure in antarama. Antarama means Raman inside Atma with his relationship with Paramaha. Not outside Indriya Rama, pleasure with the senses and sense objects. Antarama, whose enjoyment is within Antarama and whose sight is within. Tata Antar Jyotireva is a yogi, Sahayogi, and having attained the stage of Brahman, Brahma Bhuta, attains liberation. Brahma Nirvanam Adhigacchati. So how he attains liberation? Very clearly in the 18th chapter, Krishna will again take up. So this verse, Vishwanath Chakra Thakur mentions that one who transcends samsara while living within it is happy because of his realization of Brahman, Brahma Nirvanam, is Brahma Bhuta, and his happiness is in Atma, within, Antasukha, and he enjoys in that Atma within and not in the external objects. And he directs his sight to the Atma within Antarjyoti, he attains Brahma Nirvanam. He attains ultimately liberation. So this is, one who enjoys Paramatma within the Atma. You have to understand that. So Brahma Nirvanam, this term has come. We have discussed this term quite in detail. Nirvana means end of material existence. Brahma Nirvana means simultaneous revival of spiritual existence. So this is for the yogis, jnanis, it is different. For the bhaktas, it is revival of a spiritual body in devotional service. So Brahma Nirvana material means end, life end with death. For a jnani, life begins with death. For a bhakta, life begins whenever they start serving Krishna. And then attaining Brahma Nirvanam, what happens? Labante Brahma Nirvanam Rishaya Sheena Kalmasha Chinna Dvaidaya Tatmana Sarvabhuta Hiterata. The sage is devoid of ignorance. Rishaya Sheena Kalmasha. Devoid of dualities. Chinna Dvaita. With a controlled mind. Yatatmana. Engage in the welfare of all beings. Sarva Bhuta Hiterata. Attain liberation. Labante Brahma Nirvanam. So this verse, Vishwanath Jagatakur mentions many persons. Rishaya. Rishaya is, many sages, you know, have attained perfection through this practice. They were devoid of ignorance, Sheena Kalmasha, devoid of dualities, and they had controlled minds, and they engaged in welfare of all living beings. They attain liberation. And then the last verse. कामक्रोध विमुक्तानां यतीनां यतचेतसाम् अभितो ब्रह्म निर्वाणं वर्तते विदितात्मनम्. When will those who have realized the soul and then Paramatma attain the happiness of Brahma Nirvanam? This verse mentions those who have become free from lust and anger, Krama Krodha Vidvuktanam, who sincerely endeavor Yatinam, and who having weakened the subtle body, Yata Chetasam, have realized Paramata, Vidita Atmanam, soon attain Brahma Nirvana liberation. Abhito Brahma Nirvana. So who will attain? Those who are Kama Krodha Vimuktana, who are yatinam, who endeavor, and who are yatachetasam. They have weakened the subtle body, they are freed from anger and lust, and then they attain Brahma Nirvanam. And when? Abhito, very quickly, very soon, they attain this Brahma Nirvana. So this practically ends the discussion of how a Nishkama Karma Yogi attain in the Jnana platform, and by Jnana, where there is a limb of meditation on the Paramatma, and that is directly hearing and chanting about the Paramatma. Ultimately, he gives up the Anga of Gyan, and only with the practice of Bhakti, where there is hearing and chanting about the Lord of the Paramatma, with that Bhakti element, he attains liberation. So that is what he ends the discussion. Now, two verses speak about the Ashtanga Yoga process. So this I will take up. Sparshan kritva bahirbayam chakshuschaivantara bhruvo pranapano samo kritva nasyabhyantar charino yatendriya mano buddhir munir moksha parayana vigaticha bhayakrodha yah sada mukta evasa. That person, seeing the sense objects outside, sparshan kritva bahirbayam, focusing the eyes between the eyebrows. So this is, pratyahar. He has done pratyahar, and he fixes his eyes in the eyebrows. Chakshush chaivantara bro, equalizing the prana and apan moving in the nostrils. Prana apana samokritva, and thus controlling the senses, mind and intelligence. Yatendriya manobuddhi, completely dedicated to liberation. Munir moksha parayana, he is not Narayan parayan. Thus freed from desire, fear, and anger. Vigat ichcha bhaya krodha is ever liberated. Sada mukta eva. So, what Vishnu Chakrathakur mentions, the heart becomes purified by the practice of Nishkama Karma Yoga offered to the Lord. Then there is Gyan which arises, whose subject is the Atma, Tvam Pradata. Then arises Bhakti in order to gain knowledge of the Paramatma, the Tat Padartha. Now, by the appearance of that knowledge which is beyond the gunas, because Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, all three are beyond the gunas, please remember. So, there is bhakti by which he attains the knowledge of the Paramatma. You have to understand. By that appearance of the knowledge which is beyond the guna modes, one attains realization of Brahman. And this was stated in this chapter up till 5.26. How the heart becomes purified by Nishkam Karma Yoga, he has been telling from second chapter, third chapter, fourth chapter, and fifth chapter, 5.2 to 5.15, he mentioned Lippetena Papena, like that. And then the Gyan arising, he spoke of Tat Buddhas, Tat Atmanas, Prakashyati, Tat Param, And now, by that knowledge, which is beyond the gunas, he attains the realization of Brahman. Brahma Bhutadi Gacchati, Brahma Nirvanam, which we saw just now, few verses, 5.18 to 5.26. Now, Vishnu Chakrathakur, in three verses, that is 27, 28, and 29, the Lord speaks what will again be spoken in the sixth chapter, that is the process of Ashtanga Yoga, practiced after having a purified heart by Nishkam Karma Yoga. which is superior to the process of Jnanaga for producing realization of Brahman. So here the Paramatma aspect of Brahman, you can say. And then the process is being described. I mentioned, Sparshan Kritva. That means, you know, all the sense objects, form, touch, taste, and smell, you know, he withdraws the mind from that. That is Pratyahar. And then he fixes his eyebrows in the Bruvor Madhe so that he doesn't sleep or why eyes don't wander. And then the Pran, the Apan, the movement of the nostrils of inhaling and exhaling, he makes them equal. Pranapano samokritva. And then Yata, he brings the mind under control, the senses under the control. So that's how Muni will practice moksha. So the desire is for moksha, the yogi. So this is how he just gives a hint of this next process. And this is a famous verse. भोक्ताराम यज्ञ तपसाम सर्वलोक महेश्वर सुहृदम सर्वभूतानाम ज्ञात्वा माम शांतिम ऋच्छति knowing me ज्ञात्वा माम. Now ultimately the yogi also has to know the Lord, and the Lord is known only by bhakti process, which is there in that Ashtanga Yoga path. What he knows me, who am the object of worship of karmis and jnanis who do sacrifice and penance. Bhoktaram yajna are the karmis, and Bhoktaram tapasam, who is the enjoyer of tapasyas. The jnanis have to do a lot of tapasya, jnana tapasya, you know. The object of the yogis as Paramatma, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, because this universe, is actually the yogis meditate on this universe in the gross form as Virat Purusha or as the subtle form in the form of Paramatma. And is the object of worship of the devotees, the friend of the living entities by giving them instructions about Suridam Sarvabhutanam. This Ashtanga Yogi attains liberation. Shantim Ruchati. So karmis, bhakta, yajna process, they enjoy. Jnanis, tapasya, yogi, sarvan, and for the bhaktas, he is the Suridam Sarvabhutanam. So just a hint of the bhakti process will be given because he is the well-wisher. Bhakto se me saka cheti, So that's what is mentioned. So Vishnu Chakatakur mentions one cannot attain realization of the Lord who is beyond the gunas by sattva guna gyan. He is only attained by bhakti. So the bhakti element which is there in the gyan, by that he can realize the Paramatma. And I have made this point repeatedly in our discussions. So in this chapter, Gyan and the yogi by Nishkam Karma Yoga, how they attain liberation after realizing both Atma and Paramatma is being described. Of course, how the yogi will attain realization will be dealt in the next chapter. So text 29 to 20 to 29 describe characteristics naturally possessed by siddhas, consciously cultivated by sadhakas. And overviews Krishna equates Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga as a preface to introduce Bhakti Yoga, which is the natural elevation from Karma Yoga. The troublesome phase of going from action to inaction and then returning from inaction to action is thus bypassed, So from Karma Yoga, directly you can go to Bhakti Yoga because there is parallels. Arjuna thinks inaction, Jnana Yoga is higher than action, Karma Yoga. Here, the Lord says both are equal because both lead to the same result. At the end of Gita, Arjuna understanding of the ladder will be reversed by action, Bhakti Yoga being declared as higher than Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga, because Bhakti Yoga leads higher result, Bhagavan, then Jnana Yoga, Brahman. So that completes a brief overview of the 5th chapter, second part. Again, if you have any questions, I can take up any questions, any clarifications up till now. You have any questions or any clarifications? Up till now, what we have discussed about the 5th chapter overview. Any questions? Okay, so we have there is one question. Tukaram Mishkin Prabhuji, yes.
Hare
Yeah,
Krishna Prabhuji, Pranam.
yeah.
Very basic question actually,
Yeah, no problem.
but we have to see Paramatma's Amsha in all living beings.
Hmm.
Okay, but unknowingly we'll be, hurting many things. Uh, but to give couple of examples,
Hmm.
mosquitoes
Hmm.
and these cockroaches.
Hmm.
How to live with them? Neither I can kill them nor I can leave them. That is my
Basically,
dilemma.
you have to follow this one formula. You have to follow that in the entire ecosystem, they are part of the cycle of Krishna and they have to also survive just like I'm also surviving because Krishna is feeding me. So start feeding them in a proper place, like not, like I'm giving a simple example, like, just take for example the cats, you know, or the
Yeah,
dogs. They are to be kept outside, first thing.
definitely,
But we
definitely.
have to feed them, you know.
Yeah, yes,
Mhm.
certainly.
Yeah. And even to that matter, sometimes, that's why, in the Vedic tradition, this Pancha Mahashuna, Mahapapa there, Mahapap happen because while brooming, what to speak, directly killing, while brooming, you're
Yeah,
killing insects. By
many years.
boiling water, you know,
Yeah,
by using the mortar, when
yeah,
you light fire to cook, because there are jantus in the fire also, they are killed. So
yes,
that is why these different types of yagyas were mentioned. There is a Deva Yagya, Pitra Yagya, every day afternoon, some food is to be kept for all living entities. So like
right.
that, if we try doing this in a Krishna conscious way, that, when we offer prasad, we also give certain portions and, keep them in their position so that they don't also disturb us. And they also, because Paramatma is their heart, they will respect that over a period of time, you know.
Right,
So
right.
like that, we become also more conscious that the Paramatma is there. See, when Haridas Thakur was living in that cave, a poisonous snake was there inside. And people who used to come to meet Haridas Thakur in the cave, they just could not tolerate the poison because that was affecting their chest and the poison they were feeling and they were feeling suffocation. Whereas Haridas Thakur was liberated, he was not knowing that there was snake also. And then they requested, please, we cannot come and meet you here because we cannot bear the toxin poison of the snake fumes. So
Right.
Haridas Thakur, saw that, oh, because you all are getting disturbed, so, I don't want to disturb him because it is his place. So let me move out. He decided. Now the
Mm,
Paramatma in the heart of Haridas Thakur understood, and he in the Paramatma in the heart of the snake told, "Arey, nay, 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 let Haridas Thakur be here, you go out." So he moved out, that snake.
I, I
So
see.
similarly, in our heart, if we meditate, have a anukul bhavana, that,
Mm,
and then we work in that direction, then the Lord will make you also realize the Paramatma and you will become, you know, Pandita Samadarshana by doing this. It's so easy
mhm,
in one sense if you see, that sadhana to realize the Paramatma is not so easy sadhana, but, by
mhm,
doing these acts of devotion, very quickly you can realize, very
mm,
quickly you can realize. So we should work in that direction. That's my humble
right.
understanding.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Prabhu, for
Yeah.
elaborate explanation. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, any other questions about this chapter, which we finished now, 5.17 to 5.29? I'll just begin with the sixth chapter today, and tomorrow we'll continue and try to finish the sixth chapter. So the sixth chapter, these are all overviews. I'll share the slides also. Okay. The sixth chapter is a little longer chapter. It is Dhyan Yoga, Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Ashtang Yoga, Vishnu Thakur. So from Aruruksha to Arurudha stage. So we'll try to finish this today. Now Krishna begins, he continues the discussion. Anashrita karma phalam karyam karma karoti ya sa sannyasi cha yogi cha na nirna chakriya. So Krishna has elaborated or given a hint of the Ashtanga Yoga process in the previous chapter. Now, but Krishna is recommending even in the beginning stages of Ashtanga Yoga, one should practice Nishkam Karma Yoga. One should not give up Nishkam Karma Yoga. And how he should practice? Anashrita Karma Phalam. That is Nishkam. And he does it Karyam Karma Karoti. It is as his duty. He just does it as what? Duty, Karyam, inescapable duty. Vishnu Thakur is Karma. Karma is again Nishkam Karma Yoga. He is a sannyasi and he is a yogi, not one who doesn't do any actions, you know, doesn't do any actions to maintain the body. Na chakriya, na niragni. Niragni means, you know, not performing, you know, the Agnihotra sacrifice. A person who merely renounces duties such as the fire sacrifice, it is not called a sannyasi. He just renounces. So Krishna, again, if you see, is recommending not to take karma sannyas. Because ultimately the path of Gyan, where there is karma sannyas, is klesha adikrastesham. Ultimately, that he will prove that in the 12th chapter, you know. So that path is difficult for the conditioned, dehavadbir, So na niragnir, na chakriya. And then he speaks about the person. Yam sanyasamiti praho, yogam tam vidhi pandava, nahi asanyas sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana. O son of Pandava, know that the meaning of sannyas is the same as the meaning of yoga. Yam sannyasam iti praho. So yam sannyasam refers to, you know, uh, Ashtang yogi here. Yogam refers to Nishkam. So Nishkam Karma Yoga and Ashtang Yoga are same. And in the previous chapter, he had, mentioned it as Gyan Yoga. So now the higher level is Ashtanga Yoga. So Gyan Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, and Nishkam Karma Yoga are all on the same level. That's what is being put. Yam sanyasamiti prahur yogam tam vidhi. One who has not given up the desire in his actions. Asanyasta sankalpo. That is, sakama karmi is never a yogi. Sa yogi bhavati kashana. And now he speaks about when one can give up karma. Ashtang yogi who is practicing also Nishkam Karma Yoga, when he can give up karma. Aruruksho muni yogam karma karana muchyate yoga rudasya taseva shama karana muchyate. For a sage wishing to attain yoga, Aruruksha Muni Yogam, that is the beginning stages of yoga, action is said to be the cause of elevation. Karma Karana Muchyate, action becomes the cause of elevation. For a sage who has already attained yoga, Yoga Rude says, cessation of actions, that is giving up actions, is said to be the cause of maintaining that state. Karanam Uchyate. So here I mentioned that the Yoga Rudasha, Aruruksha, is Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam, which is as good as Karma Yoga because there is all action. But Pratyahar, he can stop doing actions. Pratyahar, Dhan, Dharana, it is, in the Ashtanga Yoga, that is the Yoga Ruda stage. That time he can give up Shamakarana Muchate. And in the Bhakti process, for many years, you should do Shravanam and Kirtam, at least 20 years. And in 20 years, in terms of time, you can say, I would like to calculate. In 20 years, you should have heard every day 6 hours. 6 hours means, let me tell you, in 6 hours per day into 365 is so many hours per year into 12. Not 12, into 20 years. And so almost let's say 1/3, that means 20 ka uh, almost 6 years, you can say 6 to 7 years, every day 6 hours if you have heard. Then by Shravanam, Kirtanam, you can come to Smaranam stage where there's Nitya, Nishta, Ruchi, Asakti. Then, the cessation of work can happen and you can be constantly under Smaran, which is a very exalted stage. Please remember, it's not so easy to attain even in the path of Bhakti Yoga to come to Yoga Ruda stage. No. So that's the point. And how do we know that you have attained the Yoga Ruda stage? 6.4 speaks. Yada hinendriyarteshu na karmasu anusajjate sarva sankalpa sannyasi yoga rudas taduchyate. When a person has no attachment, na anusajjate, to the sense objects or to the actions to attain them, indriyarteshu karmeshu. Neither he has attachment to the objects, nor he does actions to attain. Having renounced all desires, Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi is called Yoga Ruda, one who has attained the steady state of mind. So here there are three levels which have been spoken. Desiring, Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi is on the highest level. Engaging in it, Indriyarteshu, or having the desire for it in the senses, and pursuing. Pursuing is the last, Anusajjate. So all these three he should be at different levels. Maybe at sensual level, and it is at the mental level and the intellectual level, no desires like that. Now, when one reaches the Yoga Ruda stage, the mind is very important and the mind has to be completely controlled because the mind now is a tool for meditation. So Krishna speaks about, the symptoms of that one should actually control the mind. उद्धरेतात्मनात्मानं नात्मानम् अवसादेत आत्मैव हि आत्मबन्धो आत्मैव रिपुरात्मना. One should deliver the soul by the mind. Uddharet atmana atmanam. Not degrade it. Natmanam avasadet. The mind is a friend of the soul. Atmaiva hi atmana bandhu. And it is its enemy. So ultimately, one should deliver the soul by the mind. Actually, the soul has fallen in the samsara by attachment to senses. And one should, with effort, deliver the soul. One should deliver the soul by the mind, Atmana, which is devoid of attachment to the sense objects and the senses. One should not let the soul fall in the well of samsara by the mind, which is attached to the sense objects. Therefore, the mind is both the friend and the enemy of the soul. So, mind is like mantra. Two mistakes. Don't hear the mind submissively. And if you cannot cannot avoid hearing, don't act without consulting somebody whom you trust more than the mind. And then, who is the enemy and whose enemy is the mind, friend, or it is the enemy, friend or enemy? You can understand from this. Bandhuratmanastasya yenaivatmana jita anatmanastu shatrutve vartate atma shatruvat. The mind is the friend, Atma Bandhu of that soul, Tasya Atmana, who has conquered the mind. Anatmana Jita. The mind is an enemy of that soul, which has not controlled the mind. Anatmanastu Atma Shatruvat Shatrutve Vartate. Then it is a friend or the enemy. If we wish to disobey the mind, we must obey Krishna. If we don't obey Krishna, we have to obey the mind. The mind is whose friend and enemy? This verse answers. The mind is a friend causing benefit to the jiva who has conquered the mind. And the mind will act the enemy, harming that jiva who does not control it. So when the mind is constantly absorbed in meditation on the Paramatma, thinking about Krishna, then the mind is friend. When the mind thinks about sense objects or anything other than Krishna, then we have to understand it is an enemy. Now, what are the characteristics of the person who is situated in Yoga Ruda, who has controlled his mind? Three verses speak. Jitatmana prashantasya paramatma samahita sitoshna sukha dukkeshu tatamana apamanayo. The yogi who has conquered the mind, Jitatmana, and is devoid of all attachments, prashantasya, has his soul situated in deep trance. Atma param samahita, in all conditions of heat, cold, happiness and distress, sita, ushna, sukha, dukkha, and honor and dishonor. Tata mana apamanayo. So these are the characteristics of one who has controlled the mind. The qualities of a person who has attained steady meditation. Because if you have attained steady meditation, then you're indifferent to Sita and Ushna, Sukha and Dukkha. and Mana and Apan. Sita and Ushna affect the body. Sukha and Dukkha affect the mind. And Man and Apan, the false ego. And if you're not samahita, absorbed in this, and you're absorbed in these things, then you're on bodily consciousness. Simple. That means you're not absorbed in meditation or Krishna conscious, you can say. No? So the yogi has controlled his mind and is devoid of the attachment to the objects, and his soul is completely situated in samadhi and in all conditions of duality. When there are dualities, whether your mind is affected, we have to see. If your mind is affected, that means you are not on the yoga ruda stage. Yeah. 48,000, 43,800 hours we should hear. Yeah, that much we should hear. Sita is physical, mental, and egoistic. And then he's also satisfied with what? Jnana Vijnana Truptatma Kutastha Vijitendriya Yukta Itya Uchate Yogi Samaloshrashma Kanchana. He is satisfied by scriptural teaching and realization. Jnana and Vijnan, realization. Truptatma, who is pervaded in one nature. Kutastha. Kutastha here, Vishnu Chakatakur mentions that he is, remains fixed, doesn't change. He's fixed in the Atma, completely in control of the senses. Vichitendriya, the senses keep on hammering, but he doesn't get disturbed. He's kutastha, like the anvil. Who considers lump of earth, stone, and gold as the same? Samaloshrashmaka, because the yogi is under detachment, this path of detachment. For a devotee, no, how is samatva is? He'll use the earth, that means the stones in building the temple, you know, and gold in decorating the deities. He'll engage everything, but here it is detachment, so he maintains that equanimity. He's called as yogi. Yukta Ichate Yogi. And then two obstacles on the spiritual mind. Desires originate from the mind and entrap the kamis. Doubts originate from the intelligence and entrap the jnanis. So jnana vigyan means hearing, contemplation of what you have heard, and then applying. That is realization. That is vigyan. Now, further, Surinmitra Udasina Madhyastha Dvesha Bandhushu Sadhushu Apicha Papeshu Samabuddhir Vishishyate. He is better, Vishishyate, who sees the natural well-wisher, the friend, and the neutral person. Surin Mitra Ari Udasin, the meditator, the enemy, and the relative. Madhyastha Dvesha Bandhushu, the sinner and the pious person. Sadhushu Apicha Papeshu, as the same, Samabuddhi. So all these equal perceptions, Samabuddhi Vishishyate, to all towards this. This Prabhupada says, that to maintain equanimity to matter in different forms like earth, stone, and gold is different level, but to people is on a higher level. And this, is not so easy, he says. It's very difficult. So that is now, having mentioned how from the Aruruksha to the Yoga Ruda stage he attains, now the practice of the meditation will go from 10 to 32, which is a very simple section. Of course, we'll just go through the verses, and then Arjuna's question of how it is impractical for him to practice like this kind of meditation. And then Krishna will answer this. And after answering this, then how the mind can get deviated of a yogi, that is Arjuna's question. Then Krishna will answer that and give the topmost yogi, which we will see tomorrow. So any questions, any clarifications anyone has about this section of the sixth chapter, that 9 verses which we discussed? Any questions, any clarifications? Anyone? No questions? Okay, so no questions. So tomorrow we will probably complete the sixth chapter and start with the seventh chapter, verse by verse, which I am also eagerly waiting. Verse by verse, we will start the seventh chapter. So thank you very, very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Hare Krishna.